Welcome to the Citizen Mike Show. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Mike Burdinsky, and somewhere on that split screen is Democratic Town Councilor Vin Testa. Vinny, welcome back to Citizen Mike Show. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
So you had a meeting last night, which was March 23rd. It drew a lot of attention for two reasons. One, there was a major segment as part of that meeting dealing with the fire department. Tonight is not the night to discuss that. Pick that up later. That was too involved. But also the park and rec issue came up last night because the Wallingford Town Council at the time was on the cusp of amending an ordinance, and it eventually did last night after an hour of discussion. Bring us up to date. Why was it on the council agenda? What did you accomplish, and why did you accomplish it?
Oh, well, I guess it's fair to say it was on the agenda because of the recent, some of the recent changes in fee structure that the Park and Rec Department and Recreation Commission wanted to initiate. And there was a lot of blowback from primarily the YMCA and to an extent the Boys and Girls Club, excuse me. And that brought it to our attention. And I guess the council was made aware that although by charter we would probably have at least the power to approve these fee structures, we had sent that over to, delegated that to the Recreation Commission by ordinance quite a few years ago.
Yeah, so now
it was decided that we would, some councilors thought it'd be a good idea to change the ordinance so that we have the opportunity to review those and approve them, because we approve everything else primarily in town when it comes to fees, mostly everything else. So that's really where it came from. So the ordinance was proposed, and then the discussion was rather lengthy. And 99% of the discussion was about the fee structure itself. And is it fair? Is it not fair? How is it going to be applied? And all of the speakers were weighing in on that. And as I made the point myself that was not even the issue last night before us.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. You read about that. One would read about this in the paper and understand, I think, the two or three major stories. It drew a lot of attention. And so I watched that segment of the meeting, and there was concern about possible increases in fees, especially to nonprofits. So
right.
I know Vinnie Cervoni tried to direct the meeting and says, no, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about, that's not the issue. That's not the issue. But it was the issue, maybe not strictly technically speaking. This was the underlying concern. And it would seem that maybe the council would not have taken this issue up if it didn't share some of that concern that members of the public had. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that's fair. And it's kind of the point I was making, that we brought it up because of that shared concern over how organizations and groups are going to be treated when they're looking to use public parks.
Well, does that mean that fees are too high, or that the changes that the Park and Rec made do not meet with your approval? Otherwise, just let it go. I mean, if you like the fee structure, it'll keep with the status quo.
Well, I won't say that, because I'm not sure. I disagree with them.
Good. Tell me.
What I agreed with was the idea that the council, it makes sense to me that the council has the authority to review those fee structures and waiver provisions and approve them overall.
Okay.
The idea of should we even be addressing individual applications of that structure needs to be another discussion. That's all my point is. And last night was not the time for that, because we need to hear both sides of the argument. Why, there's a lot of time put into putting those changes together. Kenny Michaels has a position. The Recreation Commission has a position, and I always try to respect the people that on the ground that are handling these things.
Of course.
and not second guess as a knee-jerk reaction. So I didn't want it to appear like that. I do personally have concerns about different organizations and what is their true standing. Are they truly a nonprofit? Are they potentially a business? So on and so forth. And should they all be treated equally? The idea of the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, their usage is pretty extensive. And is it reasonable to start having them pay to utilize these facilities? That in and of itself, those two situations are worthy of a lengthy discussion.
All right, so let's examine what sort of hole you dug yourself into.
Sure, go ahead.
If any, if any.
What I do.
And it's fun crawling out of those things. So
Yeah.
it seems as though the change in the ordinance was passed unanimously, and that change said that no park facility fee is going to be effective until the council approves it. Or the fee structure. The word structure, I think, means the overall rate schedule, but the word structure is.
Right. Yeah.
So that means that the Park and Rec, in order to charge fees at all, has to come back to the council in about a month and have the council look at this and then approve. I gather there's implied power to modify, though I'm not clear about that, whether you can modify fees or you just accept or reject. But I guess someone could take the position that if someone objected to one fee, the whole thing is rejected. I'm not sure if someone's going to take that position, but possibly. But does that mean that all 9 of you are going to sit down and hash over exactly how much the YMCA should be charged for, per day for its camp? Because that's what started this whole thing. That's what this is all about. And if you're not going to do that, why are you wasting our time? How's that for an edgy question?
Good question.
Good. This week, good.
No.
No to what?
No. I don't. We're not going to take every single issue. I don't think if we wanted to do that, the ordinance had to be written differently.
I know. That's why.
That's my point. The ordinance simply says we need to approve the rate card. Call it the rate card.
Yep.
The fee structure, not every individual application of it. And we are not the appeals board for their application of that.
Okay.
If it said the town council is going to establish and approve every application of that, that's different. I wouldn't be in favor of that.
I sense that maybe we're avoiding the issue that brought us here. So let's take a hypothetical. These are fun,
Oh,
I'll
sure.
draw it out so you can, give it some thought. But let's supposing the fee structure and the general language giving criteria for fee waivers comes to you. The YMCA is not mentioned, but the daily, but you pass this because the waiver language, their criteria is very general. Just like planning and zoning has, well, you can consider the character of the neighborhood, which means absolutely nothing. It's all pablum, very subjective. And so you pass this without mentioning or discussing the YMCA. Park and Rec goes back, and I'm making this up. This is purely fiction, folks. So there's no inside information here, pure fiction. Park and Rec goes back and we said, we've got approval for the fee structure, a large facility, 800 a day. That's basically almost the entire park. We're going to waive for the Y 50% of it and charge them 400 a day per the criteria. That's double what was in the newspaper. And they say the town council approved it. They approved the rate structure, the waiver structure. If you have any problems, go to the council. They approved all of this. Why couldn't that happen?
It could.
Well,
it could. And honestly, I don't think we are quite, I think we're not out of the woods on this.
No.
Not even close. We're not. Okay. And I think it's entirely possible and likely that there will be an appeal to us of some type of application of that fee structure. And depending on how the council feels, they may vote one way or the other to override something.
I didn't
And then
see,
there'll be an argument about whether the ordinance allows that or not.
yeah, I didn't see in the language of the ordinance anything about appealing to you. I mean, once you approve the structure of
Exactly.
fees, it's over, and now it's up to the Park and Rec to set fees and grant waivers in their discretion, controlled by this pablum general vague criteria. Yeah, isn't that how it works?
Correct.
So if the
And,
Y
and if
ends
we,
up,
and if it and if the the dust hits the fan, and that happens, then some on the council may say we need to revisit this ordinance.
okay,
We need to change it because we want to be able to say, no, you can't charge them that.
so
But right now, on my read of the ordinance is we didn't give ourselves that latitude.
yeah. So as I read published reports, the thinking about the YMCA, again, which started this, that issue with the Y, not the Y started, but the issue with the Y got this ball rolling. And the thinking was, wasn't an official position, but the thinking was it'd be charged 200 a day for its camp. Are you okay with that?
I could be.
What's your
Yeah.
general
But
fear?
then is it going to go to 400 the next year, which is what he's talking about? Could it go up to eventually, like over a 5-year period?
Yeah.
Will that happen? And perhaps the thinking behind that is it allows them to plan in their own fee structure because they're charging people for these programs. They're not free. It allows them to, absorb that expense a little bit better.
Look,
And I
I
need to hear from them.
yeah.
What would be the impact? Do you not have the financial means to do this? Is it unfair? Are people going to be left out? All this, we need to then make that value judgment. And I need to hear more from both sides. That's why I don't want to say one. It's very easy to take the emotional position on this, that it's going to deprive children of activities. Well, certainly I'm not in favor of that. I'm in favor of providing opportunities for all the children. Okay. But when you're talking about organizations that do operate by charging fees for their operations, how much of that expense, how much is this really going to impact that? And if they can demonstrate that it will lead to inevitably decreased opportunity because they can't afford to pass to absorb those costs, then I want to hear about it.
Well, you're not
they are that much of an important organization in this
yeah,
community.
but I don't think you're going to hear about it. And just again, let me lay out how I think the ordinance reads and how it's going to be applied. And then I want to play a clip from Mayor Dickinson's view of it. The way I think the language of the ordinance says you approve the fee structure and the waivers and the criteria and the process for waivers.
Right.
Waiving fees. So there is no criteria yet for applying waivers of fees. So I don't see how any fee structure could be approved. So until they come up with criteria language, I don't think anything gets approved, but that's up to you guys. If, however, there is criteria for applying fee waivers, it will be so vague and general and very subjective, there is virtually no control. And it's up to the discretion of the Park and Rec. Therefore, if the going commercial rate for a park is 800 a day, the Y wants to use the park. It's at the discretion of Park and Rec to waive some or all of it because you built that in. You built that criteria in, and you're not going to review individual rates. And the Y ends up with 400 a day, and there's no appeal to you. You're stuck with it unless you change the ordinance. Isn't that where we are?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. And I'm not sure.
That's how I see where we are. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that's where you wanted to be, but
no, not necessarily. No, but
all right.
That's
Vinny, during the course of the discussion on Tuesday night, Mayor Dickinson weighed in on his view of user fees.
The user fees is what we're talking about, increasing the user fees. And the user fee pays schedule has long been in place. However, as the chairman indicated, it has not been applied to nonprofit organizations. Personally, I don't have a problem with user fees. I think they're appropriate in certain cases. But where I have concerns is where we increase fees and we really can't determine that there's an increased cost as a result of a specific use of a facility or park. And then it can become, in my view, arbitrary and in my mind, not supported by the usual format for a user fee. But certainly where an organization has a particular impact upon a park, facility, et cetera, and that is logically assigned to their use of it, that's to me an appropriate user fee. Where we're just saying, well, you're there and we're going to charge you for it without any connection with incurred costs as a result of that use. I think we're beyond where we should be in terms of user fees.
In general, he said there needs to be a connection between the burden that the group who's using the facility puts on Park and Rec. The added cost, if any, could be reflected in a user fee, but he said, if people just show up and use it, maybe there shouldn't be a user fee. I think that was his general thinking. Your thoughts on his thoughts?
Okay, well, I thought his thoughts really made no sense. And I have a couple of problems with this. First of all, again, everyone's going to the council on this, but the Park and Rec director reports to the mayor. So he's a department head and the mayor oversees that department head. So the mayor has been amazingly silent on this issue and allowed the buck to be passed to the council. That's one thing that bothered me from the beginning. As I said, we can approve a fee structure, but the administration of that is done by the department who then reports to the mayor. And he hasn't taken a stand on this. And then last night, when he was making the points he was making, first of all, he was responding to an argument that I'm still not even sure I buy. And again, the questioners, Mr. Morgenstein and others, I valued what they were saying, but they were really playing the point that, trying to make the point that the Park and Rec department is increasing these fees because their budgets aren't high enough to maintain the parks. Now, we could talk about that for a long time, if in fact it's even true, or if it's even the causality is there. But that was what the mayor jumped in to defend, saying, first of all, the Park and Rec department doesn't pay for the maintenance of the parks. That's public works. So he was arguing that point. Then he went on to try to give the justification for user fees, and it made no sense. And several things he said made no sense. One that made absolutely no sense is he tried to bring in the fact that user fees are charged when there's a cost for instructors. That makes no sense, because private groups, nonprofits, whatever you are, if they're trying to use a park and they have instructors, that's not the cost of the town. The town doesn't pay for those instructors.
Well, let me take to the defense of the mayor a little bit. I think he was saying is, if let's say there's a program at Park and Rec giving Zuma, and you sign up, Park and Rec has to pay the Zuma instructor $100, and that should be reflected in a user fee. I think that.
All right, maybe he was going that route, but that was not relevant to like any of the people that are complaining about this. That's my point. Of course, if the Park Rec has an expense, and because you're renting their facility or using their personnel, that's one thing. This is like everyone's thinking of the same thing. I have a ball field or I have a park and I want to rent it. I want to use it. So I'm a little league, I'm a YMCA, I'm a travel baseball team. you know, and now you're going to start charging me when you weren't charging me. And the fact that there might be instructors is irrelevant. It's
Confuse the issue in your view.
that was he hasn't taken a stand on the application of this. He hasn't said anything about whether he thinks it's fair what Park and the Rec Department wants to do with the YMCA. When right now he's the only one who could tell them not to do it.
Okay,
He
so
can't tell them not to do it.
yeah,
So he's passing the buck to the council when right now he's the one in charge.
so I want to bottom line this briefly and pithily if I can. If you were mayor, how would you handle it?
Frankly, out of respect for Kenny Michaels and his group and the recreation department, I would really want them to justify to me what they're doing. But if I felt that it wasn't being administered, like for something as large and as widespread as the YMCA's usage, the Boys and Girls Club's usage, I would have no problem overruling them and saying, no, I don't want you doing that.
Okay.
Very simple.
Let's move
And
on.
I would, I don't think that's fair. Just as, and I give the mayor credit, he always puts in money for all of the little leagues and the softball. They all get and none of those groups are going to be charged fees. The people that are getting money from the town, the all volunteer sports leagues that the town, cuts a check for whatever 3,000 for, let's say, they're not going to be charged to use the fields. A lot of those folks have been misunderstanding this. The ones who do have a gripe potentially are the travel teams that charge that potentially are operating as a business per se. That is where there's some dispute right now, and I'm not sure how I would handle them either. But it's pretty straightforward who is going to be impacted by this that wasn't impacted in the past. And as mayor, I would I have no problem weighing in on it.
Change the subject.
Fine.
One high school or two? Don't answer that yet. I got a little context for you and to give you some time to think. Not that we haven't discussed this off camera, but it'll give you more time to think.
Yes, I will not answer it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so March 3, 2021, Silver Petroselli, the architects that have been working with the Board of Education on the school facility study, sent a letter in outlining a scope of services that they could provide for the Board of Ed for a preliminary feasibility study. Basically, it would be a study to determine whether or not a consolidated one high school could fit on the town-owned land where Lyman Hall now stands. And they said in one of their paragraphs that they anticipate that they could begin the process within 2 weeks after they received notice to proceed. And this was a March 3 letter, so I bet that they've got a notice to proceed. And they could deliver a final report within a month thereafter. I'm thinking that in the month of April, there's going to be a report that will determine whether or not a consolidated high school fit on the Lyman Hall property. And then the issue heats up. And because it's an election year, we're going to talk about your political aspirations in a minute, but the Board of Ed, I think, is terrified of this issue. I think the counselors running for election or re-election also, but it's coming up. And I think Sal Menzo is absolutely correct to get that preliminary information and then steer it in your direction to see whether or not the council wants to provide funding for a more in-depth study. And that's the moment of truth. Everyone's been thinking of this for 2 years at least since the issue first popped. The one high school concept was kind of swept under the rug when the Board of Ed, I think, mistakenly went out for a survey, and the one consolidated high school sort of really wasn't in the mix, but now it is, because Dr. Menzo is putting the force of his office behind the recommendation of having one high school instead of two. Where do you stand?
I'm not ready to weigh in one way or the other specifically for a couple of reasons. One, and I understand how hot an issue this is. Okay, I'm not foolish. I graduated from Sheehan. I teach at Lyman Hall, right? And I grew up in Wallingford. I know all of the emotional arguments and the other arguments, the pragmatic arguments that potentially stand in the way of having one high school. The distance, the travel, those types of things. But I always felt like this when I was on the Board of Ed, and now I'm on the council. This is and where we are right now, this is a Board of Education issue and decision to make. Now, when they decide at some point that this is where they want to go, certainly they have to come to us for the money. And we could say, no, we're not in favor of that. And at that point, I would want to know very strongly what the general sentiment of the community was. And we don't have that right now, aside from the emotional responses. Because I can't tell you how many people, it seems to me, their primary objection is there wouldn't be a powder puff game, or there wouldn't be and that's not a minor issue, but frankly, you could still do a West Side, East Side.
Wait a minute, no, hold on, because it's only an hour show. It's only an hour show. Let's
Understand. So there's so much involved in this, but also the size of the school, the opportunities that it'll provide. Is it a positive or negative from an athletic perspective, from an academic perspective? You see towns like Southington with a very large high school, very successful in every area. Other towns that have large high schools, it's problematic. So I'm not on the Board of Ed. And I could take the politically popular view right now and say, no way am I in favor of one high school.
I'm not sure that's a political popular view right now, and I tell you why. So give me a minute to.
Yeah.
Give me a minute here. Right now, so far, what we've heard on social media or anecdotally, in my view, and I'm going to take a very, not to be a devil's advocate, because this is what I believe, we've heard arguments that are secondary. The arguments about the football competition, arguments about powder puff. These
Right.
shouldn't be driving the decisions. I'm sorry, moms and dads and students. The traditions of two high schools. These aren't the critical drivers of the decision. What should be involved is which choice, one high school or two, best promotes academic achievement, educational opportunity, and equity of educational opportunity, because Lyman Hall and Sheehan may not have the same programming necessarily. So you have the academic case for it. And that case, let me finish here, has never been made publicly in a broadband sort of fashion, maybe in small meetings, maybe in meetings that weren't well reported, but the community has not yet been broadsided with the academic reasons for one high school. Therefore, when you say, well, we got to see what the public wants, they don't yet know what the benefits of one high school are, and leading the charge has to be Dr. Menzo and the Board of Ed. If the Board of Ed backs off from that and says, no, it's too hot to handle, that leaves Sal Menzo by himself to make a case. I don't think it's a fair fight. I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's in the best interest of Wallingford. There needs to be idea leaders on this, and not asking people about powder puff and football traditions.
Right.
Just the view of Citizen Mike. Your thoughts?
And I agree 100% with that. All of what you said, I agree with that. I do believe that our Board of Ed, most members, the ones I know certainly well, are going to be perfectly capable and willing to lead that drive. You said, are they going to just drop it and let Sal Menzo handle it? No, I think when they're in a position to make their decisions and move forward, they're going to be taking the stand and leading the charge. I trust them to do that. We'll see, but I do.
In the meantime, academically, do you see an advantage to one high school?
I could, sure.
Well,
I don't think the number of high schools, I don't think there's any relevance.
oh, one high school or two, it's equal?
No, I mean, it's the facility, the ratio of teachers to students, it's the programming, it's the technology, it's all of the offerings that determine, the academic excellence.
Well,
You could have 3 high schools, but they could be so small that there's 26 kids in a classroom.
well,
And you could have a big high school with 18 kids in a classroom,
well,
and many more. You know what I'm talking about? The facility could be state of the art, and with so many more program offerings. Think about how we've fallen away from career education, which is what I'm in, technical education, trade education. If you all of a sudden said we're going to have one high school and a whole wing is going to be quote unquote very much like Wilcox Tech, where it's going to be all technical trade oriented, and now that's going to start raising a lot of eyebrows. Like, wow, oh, that's not bad. Bringing back all of that. So I don't think the fact that it's one or two buildings makes a difference. It's what one or two buildings are you talking about?
Well, you're not going to finance two trade schools equally well. It doubles the cost. I mean,
Right.
so in a way, I read your comments at first saying one high school would probably offer more opportunities, and you seem to take it away. And now I don't know where you stand, but I'm asking you, hold on, you'll have a chance to finish up. Now I'm asking you sort of as an expert witness, who by coincidence is on the council, and who by coincidence was on the Board of Ed, and who by coincidence is a teacher. Academically, what's best?
Either.
Okay.
No, either. As I said, the number of schools, I don't think impacts that. It's the program offering and the facility, the facilities and the staff. It's the staff and the
So
facility.
that means it's just a matter of money, and because building one brand new state-of-the-art, wonderful single consolidated high school would cost more, you would say it ain't worth the money because two high schools would be equal.
Could be.
Okay.
Well, no, the cost is going to come into play, of course. But
Yeah, I'm not ready to
we're
talk
going to have
about
one high school. It's certainly,
Yeah.
It has to be able to accommodate the staff, the students, and it's going to be big. Don't get around. It's going to be big.
Going to be big. Well, we're not done with the subject, especially as the election year gets closer and closer. We're going to try to find some brave Board of Ed members to see if they go on the record as favoring one or the other right up to election time to see what.
Right. Well, and the expense just keeps going up of operating the buildings.
Let's talk about Democratic politics. Okay, what's going on with the Democrats? I read an article in the paper, your name is mentioned. I don't know what to think. You tell me.
There's a lot of good things happening with the Democratic Party.
If you say
really
so
excited
yourself.
about it. No, I'm really excited about it.
Okay.
I've been around for a few years, you know that, going way back. I've been a part of the Democratic Town Committee since 1990 or whatever, and I've gone through more campaigns than I can probably recall. So I've seen the organization, the operation in so many different iterations, if you will. And what we have happening right now is very exciting for me as a member and as a public servant, and as someone who, and at a time I know has to run for office, because what we're seeing is a lot of excitement and energy among the rank and file members and newer members of the town committee. That means volunteers who are out there already talking to people that want to share the message, that want to do the work of a campaign. And as a politician, you were one. When it's time to run for office, you need people more than anything else. More than money, you need people to phone, to walk around, to share information, to do the work of a campaign, and to help develop the message, and to just be a part of it. And that's all happening right now, and that's exciting to me. We have a machine that's really starting to work and getting gear.
So let's
And that's exciting to me. And as a result of that, there's a lot of new faces, new people involved. A lot of them have been around for a while, but they're young and excited, and they have a lot to offer and bring to the table. So, we have an opportunity to get a message out that I think is going to appeal to a lot of people.
Good pitch. Okay, well, let's get by the pitch and get a little more specific.
Well, but not a
Of course,
pitch.
I agree.
Pitch,
Absolutely.
It's how I feel. Go ahead.
Of course, of course. Um, I hear something about a survey. Is what is the survey? What's on it? Is it a push poll? What do we know about the survey? And it says they're reaching out to Democrats, which is very interesting. Rather than the whole town, rather than unaffiliated, they're reaching out to Democrats, and I just wanted your thoughts on it and what you know.
Well, reaching out to Democrats right now. I mean, it's
Okay.
March. So common sense, if you're going to start putting together a campaign, you would naturally want to make sure that the folks that are registered in your party are on board and aware of what you're doing. And then you continue to spread your message out from there. But you experienced it, I've experienced it. We have seen less than optimal involvement from our own registered Democrats in town for a long time. A lot of Democrats that haven't voted. So you say, well, listen, let's if we're going to try to mobilize folks and get them back into the mix, let's start with folks that are registered in our party. We know they're voting in national elections. We know they're voting in state elections. Why are they not participating as strongly in the local elections?
Do you have a theory on that? Do you have a theory?
We're doing something wrong.
Oh.
We haven't reached out to them. We've forgotten about them. Maybe we've taken them for granted. I don't know. But one way to find that out is to call them up and stop
Okay.
and knock on the door and say, hey, hi, we have a few questions for you. Not a little more, I'm not being trite. Where have you been? But it's more, this survey is about, what do you think about these 5 to 7 issues? This is where we're thinking of going forward. And do you agree with these statements? It's kind of that type of thing. And it's allowing us to get them back involved. And at the same time, hone a message that will eventually become a platform. So it's a very strategic and I think smart way to go forward.
Okay, so the way I read the Record Journal, a couple of topics, I'm not going to call them issues, maybe I will call them issues,
Yeah.
were listed, and it was represented that it was the vision of the Democratic Town Committee. Investing wisely in schools. I've got 2 or 3 I want to run by you. Investing wisely in schools, as compared to the Republicans, I guess, who want to invest unwisely in schools. I mean, what is this all about? Is this a poll? Let me finish. Is this a poll on one high school or 2? Because that's what they're talking about.
No.
So what's the point of the question?
It is not. That I know. It's not a survey, a poll on that. It's really, it's not much different than the arguments that have been made in every campaign, primarily by Board of Ed people. It's, do you feel strongly that investing in education is important? And it's a way of garnering support for wise investment in education, as opposed to looking for cuts. Maybe it is just a philosophical reassertion.
Okay.
But there's nothing wrong with that. That's important.
Community pool seems to be brought up. Is that well, let me back up. When we talk about community pool, regular viewers of this show know that I declared community pool dead about a year ago. I declared it double dead last fall. It's not going anywhere, at least with this mayor. I mean, it's over. You might as well talk about something else, yet this has popped up. The only way there's going to be a community pool is if there's a new mayor, and everyone can handicap that that race if they want.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the point of bringing up community pool? It's not coming back. It's not opening this summer. It's not going out to bid again. I mean,
well, I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with that.
Of course, that's why I asked you.
Right. I understand your position on this, and the whole point of continuing to bring it up is so that doesn't happen. Because if we stop asking about it, it most certainly is dead. And if we continue to talk about it, and the support for it is expressed and reinforced, perhaps it doesn't die. Obviously, a change in mayor to someone who's in favor of a renovation and continuation of that facility would assure that it's done. But I don't agree that it is going to be totally dead as long as he's there. It's going to be hard to bring him around, but the safe thing to do is to say thank you for your service and it's time to move on. And community pool is one major issue that demonstrates why we need a change in that seat.
Well, okay. I mean, I know, I understand this is preliminary and we're just gathering, you're just gathering information. And it seems to me at some point, this preliminary stage is going to have to mature into a real platform that is more than pablum. You in favor of spending 7 million on community pool or not? I, as a Democrat, say yes, I'm in favor, or the opposite, if that's true. I, as a Democrat, am in favor of one high school with all the implications. Or if that's not true, say no, that's not true. But sooner or later, it's going to have to crystallize in some clear choices, or else it's pablum. And for a party in the minority to take the majority or the mayor's seat, it seems to me some clear positions rather than pablum need to be expressed. Do you agree?
Yes. But you keep saying that one high school thing. That's not on the survey, and that's not one of our issues right now.
It's got to be.
And it's not my
It's got
position.
to be. It's got to be an issue.
Well, it will eventually, perhaps, but
Yeah.
at some point, it's not my position right now. And I don't want it to appear
So,
that way. You asked me what I thought about them. I'm not taking a position on it yet.
right. What determines whether or not you run for mayor?
That's, I wish there was an easy answer to that. It really is, I'm looking at where I am in my life right now, and it's that type of decision. As you know, it's a major decision. It's a major undertaking, and I have not come to the decision about whether I want to make that change in my life right now. As much as it's something I've always wanted to do, it's something I'm totally confident that I could do, and I honestly believe better than anyone else available, including who's there now. But it is a major life change, and it is a major decision to make, and I haven't made it yet.
So this is an opinion show, as you know. I mean, it's a free
Yes.
exchange of opinions, and we try to disagree civilly. And
Of course.
so I got my opinion on that. You can comment or not. It's up to you.
Sure.
If the mayor doesn't run, you do. If the mayor runs, you don't. Your thoughts?
It's not that clear cut.
Okay.
Because honestly, even if tomorrow he said, I'm not running, that doesn't mean automatically I'm going to say, oh, I'm in. Because as I said, there's more to it than that.
Well, the sooner you make up your mind, probably the better it is for everybody. I mean, the sooner you can start your campaign and, frame the issues the way you see them, et cetera.
Right. But right now, there's 3 people in my party, myself included, who have expressed an interest. And they are talking to people, they are discussing who they are, introducing themselves. So it's early in the game, and no one is, I think, being is hurt by me not making a decision about it at this point.
Okay.
No one. Everybody is in the game, and we'll see as we get through the spring into summer. Well, that's when decisions have to be made. But the nice thing about what we're doing right now is we are doing the legwork to get a campaign established and to develop a message that all our candidates will be sharing. So if it takes a few months to decide this is who's going to be leading this ticket, that's fine. Because all that's going to happen between now and then is going to be building the message that's going to get us all elected, whatever we run
Yeah,
for.
fair point. I think it's all very fair. I just hope that when all is said and done and a platform is put together, we have something more, something bolder than fair taxes, good educational system, roads in good repair, strong recreation department. I hope we have, because that doesn't distinguish Democrats from Republicans. Everyone in town wants that stuff.
Right.
So you're going to distinguish yourself. You're going to have to, someone's going to have to go out on a limb. And as a minority party, that's what you got to do. You go out on a limb and you lead public opinion rather than follow it. Just my thoughts. But I want to change the subject on you.
Well, and I agree with you, and I think you'll see that.
Good. I want to switch over to government TV. The mayor's been very cagey as to whether or not Scott Hanley, who now does an excellent job, in the government TV office, making sure all the meetings are covered and put up on YouTube and the other services government TV provides. I'm not sure the mayor is committed to that. The budget is going to be out in about a week. Sooner or later, someone is going to flush out the future of government TV. Exactly what is it going to look like? What the level of service is going to be as compared to what it is now. Someone is going to do that. Is that person you?
Perhaps.
What are your?
I've learned not to start screaming about something, and that the mayor can then turn around and address the next day. Okay. Case in point, the town planner.
Town planner.
Okay. He gave no indication that he had anyone ready for that position, and was just dragging it out. We've gone far too long without one, but I'm prepared to start making a big issue out of that. And lo and behold, he has one selected.
Question though. I want to get back to my
So
question.
government TV, the budget's coming out in a week.
Yeah.
So let's see what he does.
Well, my question is, is it worth the fight to fight for the current level of service that we have?
At the very least, we need more service, but we need to obviously find a way to do it economically, fairly, smartly. We've talked about this over and over again.
Yeah, means and methods, we can discuss at a later time.
Because it doesn't have to add expense that, at the taxpayer's expense, that type of thing, right? We could talk. Yeah, what we cannot do is allow things to go backwards. And reducing levels of service right now is foolhardy.
Yeah.
No, we should not. We should be finding ways to enhance and increase.
So I just have a thought on final TV, and then I'm going to switch it over to you, and I'm going to ask you as the final question, Vinny, anything you want to add. So be ready for that. And that's a 60-second answer. But on government TV, I just want to share.
I'll just say no, but go ahead.
It's all right. It's fine.
Right.
I
No,
just
thank
wanted
you.
to warn you, those open-ended questions are the worst.
I know.
I'm not sure the mayor or really the people of Wallingford appreciate this, but my understanding is through private conversations and anecdotal events, things, is that public officials rely on TV a lot to watch their own meetings or other meetings. If a public official, I'll just make up the board on planning and zoning, wants to be really clear about what happened, they often don't rely on the minutes, but they'll watch their own meeting to make sure they understand it, to review the evidence. And I understand some counselors do that too. They'll go back over the meeting, watch segments that are important to them to see, or clarify and to fine tune points that were made. In addition to the public. And since COVID, I think the public has got a much bigger appreciation for the convenience of government TV. You can check in on a meeting or a portion thereof, by going to government TV the next day, the day after, it's on demand or live streaming. Very important. It's become more valuable. You got the final word on anything you want.
Well, I agree with that. And I think anything that can be done to increase public participation in the government process is a positive thing. Let's take that, make that point clear. Transparency, it's important. What's going on? We were speaking about a lawsuit that the town is supposedly involved in that we knew nothing about.
Right.
It came up as a question from Mr. Morgenstein and Mr. Glidden, I believe, about a person who, had a lawsuit against the ZBA. That decision by ZBA itself, can be argued and discussed. But to find out as a counselor that we're being sued by the state agency, a state agency that over human rights and so forth, is outlandish to me.
Yeah.
Okay. An example of somebody, an administration that likes to keep the public in the dark as much as possible.
Minimum disclosure with maximum delay. Yeah, right.
There you go. So there's an example. So by practice, there's a hesitancy to move forward in any direction and to open things up to what? To criticism. So no, the less you know, the better. I've got it under control. Don't worry about it. Well, that doesn't fly anymore in this day and age. And we have the means through, come on, all education is gone remote very quickly, very easily, and very positively. We're having meetings online in ways that would have never been available if we didn't have to. Okay, now we see what's possible. So why would we go back? Why would we go backwards? It makes no sense.
Let's make that.
And the position, Scott Hanley, for example, that position is critical to open, transparent government and public involvement in government. So there's the final word. How's that?
You got it.
And it's really great to see you again and talk to you.
See you next episode. That'll be after the budget comes out.
Right, that'd be great.
It'll be early April. But until then, thanks for coming on, and thank you viewers for watching the Citizen
I
Mike.
was remiss in one way. You would ask about that survey. I was going to give it to you. So I'm going to administer the survey to you on the next episode. You are a registered Democrat. You're going to be getting it anyway.
Okay.
So you want to know what we're asking? I'm going to ask you right in our next episode.
Do I answer?
You have the first part.
Do I answer honestly, or what do we do?
Oh, you're incapable of anything else.
Okay, so here's the deal. On that survey, I'm going to ask you the exact same questions.
Very good.
Prepare, young man.
I'm always
Good night, everyone. Thanks for watching. We do appreciate it. Good night.